You know those moments? The ones you realize in real time are going to change everything? This is one of them. What you just witnessed with Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland wasn't a press conference. It was a declaration of war. And the NFL, they just got served divorce papers. Forget the draft analysis. Forget the depth chart debates. We are watching a full-blown organizational implosion, broadcast live, and I gotta tell you, I haven't seen an athlete with this much audacity, this much conviction since maybe ever. I mean, the sheer cojones it took for a fifth-round rookie, a kid with no leverage, to not just speak truth to power, but to drag power out into the street and hang it by its ankles. We need to talk about it. Because this isn't just a Brown story. This is a league-wide seismic event that will fundamentally alter the player-coach dynamic forever. And believe me, the people who run this league are terrified right now. Let me just say this up front. What just happened in Cleveland is not normal. This isn't a hot take. This isn't overreaction Thursdays. What just happened with Shedeur Sanders? That was a full-on live broadcast detonation. And I don't think the NFL is ready for what's coming next. We've seen rookie interviews go sideways before. Nervous kid says too much. Maybe throws a teammate under the bus by accident. But this wasn't nerves. This wasn't inexperience. This was intentional. This was a rookie quarterback walking into a national spotlight and lighting a match with a straight face and then watching the entire building burn. And here's what's wild. He didn't flinch, not once. Rich Jenkins asked a question. You know, your standard media day fluff. How's the transition been with the Browns staff? And Shedeur didn't give the cliche. He didn't say it's been good or we're building chemistry. Nah. He looked dead into the camera and said, at some point, it's about more than football. It's about respect. Let me tell you right now, when a rookie quarterback says that on national TV, that's code for I've had enough. And what came next? I don't even have the words. And I talk for a living. Shedeur Sanders didn't just call out Kevin Stefanski. He dissected him piece by piece. He went after the play calling, the leadership, the politics. And it wasn't emotional. It wasn't messy. It was surgical. You could feel it. He wasn't winging it. He came prepared like a man who's been holding this in for months and finally said, screw it. If I'm going down, I'm taking the whole system with me. And here's where it gets even more insane. He defended Dillon Gabriel, the guy he's supposed to be competing against. The guy who's supposed to be the enemy in this QB battle. Shedeur didn't throw him under the bus. He picked him up, dusted him off, and said, he's not the problem. We're both being played. I mean, what? Who does that? You could feel the silence in the room. Jenkins tried to pivot, tried to bring it back to football, but Shedeur wasn't having it. He wasn't there to talk about coverages and blitz pickups. He was there to expose what he called manipulative leadership tactics. And he said it like it was nothing, like he's been waiting for someone to finally ask. And when he went into detail about practice reps, that's when jaws hit the floor. He laid it out, how Gabriel was getting first-team reps no matter what, how the staff already made their decision before camp even started. He said, this isn't professional football. This is politics. That line right there, it's gonna live forever in Cleveland lore, maybe NFL history, but it didn't stop there. Oh no, you thought that was the climax. He went deeper. He told everyone watching that Gabriel's suspension wasn't legit, that it was manufactured, that the team created a confrontation so they could justify removing him from the equation. And then this is where I had to pause the video and just sit down. He quoted Stefanski allegedly. He said Stefanski told the coaches, this gives us the excuse we needed. This solves our problem permanently. If that's true, that's not just unethical. That's fireable. That's a league investigation waiting to happen. And Shedeur didn't just drop that bomb and walk away. He gave names. He gave the time, the location, the context. This wasn't hearsay. This was a challenge to the NFL. Go ahead, verify it. I'm not bluffing. And now the Browns are in chaos. The front office is scrambling. The players are holding private meetings. Veterans are whispering to the media. The league office already called Cleveland. They're officially concerned. That's not speculation. That's confirmed. And here's the kicker. After all that, after ripping his head coach to shreds, after accusing the entire staff of political manipulation and organizational failure, Shedeur looked into the camera and said, I'm not going anywhere. That moment right there, that's when I realized we're witnessing something different. This isn't a kid throwing a tantrum. This is a player demanding change and doing it without fear. He could have ended his career right there. 5th round pick, no guaranteed spot. Going nuclear on national TV. That's career suicide for most guys. But Shedeur doesn't care. And that's why people are rallying behind him. Fans are torn. Some are furious, calling him disrespectful, arrogant, out of line. But others, they're calling him a truth teller, saying he's the first guy in years to hold the Browns accountable, to speak out when everyone else just shut up and collected a check. And I get it. Cleveland has been through hell. Bad drafts, worse coaching, front offices that couldn't manage a fantasy team. And now here comes this rookie, this outsider calling out the rot from the inside. And whether you love him or hate him, you can't ignore him. And then there's Dillon Gabriel. What a wild twist. He's become the center of this storm without even saying a word. He's being defended by his competition. And now the entire league is wondering, will he back up Sanders' story? Will he speak out? Because if he does, it's over. It's completely over. Stefanski's career done. The coaching staff gone. The front office probably next. This is bigger than football now. This is about credibility, about trust. And here's where things get really tricky. Multiple veterans are thinking about going public. That's the rumor. If even one of them confirms Sanders' story, it's a wrap. The Browns can't survive that. You lose the locker room. You lose everything. And let's not forget the NFL. They're watching this like hawks. If it turns out the suspension was staged, that's a massive violation. That's league discipline, lawsuits, maybe even firings from the top down. And yet, through all this chaos, you've got Sanders standing tall, saying he's here to stay, that he believes in this roster, that he wants to fix it. That's the wildest part to me. He could have blamed the Browns and said, I want out. But he didn't. He doubled down. He said, sometimes fixing a broken system requires identifying the problems honestly before you can address them effectively. Who says that? Who thinks like that? A rookie. This guy is not normal. He's not just trying to win games. He's trying to change the way the system works. And that scares people. That terrifies coaches who've been doing it the same way for 20 years. That makes executives nervous because if this works, if he wins the locker room, if the truth comes out, then every other rookie in the league sees it. Every player who's been stuck behind the depth chart for political reasons, they start speaking up. And that's the revolution. That's what this could become. The Browns are at a crossroads. Stefanski's authority is shattered. The players are divided. The fans are split. And the front office is running out of time. They can't stall this. They can't bury it in a press release. The world saw it. The internet saw it. And no one's forgetting it. So now the Browns have to decide, and fast. Do they back the coach and risk mutiny in the locker room? Or do they back the quarterback and admit the system failed? There's no middle ground. No PR spin. It's one or the other. And Shedeur, he's not backing down. He said it himself. Some things are bigger than your career. Some moments demand that you risk it all. That's rare. That's powerful. And that's dangerous. Look, we gotta zoom out for a second and try to understand what would motivate a coach like Stefanski to allegedly pull a stunt like this. He's a guy who's won Coach of the Year. He has a reputation for being measured, meticulous, a bit of a football nerd, not a schemer in the political sense. So why the risk? Pressure. The pressure cooker in Cleveland is unlike almost anywhere else in the NFL. They need a quarterback solution. They've poured so much capital and reputation into that position, and they keep failing. The narrative from the front office, from GM Andrew Berry, has always been about stability and process. But if Shedeur's story is true, that whole process is a lie. They had an internal favorite, likely Gabriel, the guy who fit their mold, their pre-draft scouting profile. Shedeur, the kid with the celebrity dad, the unconventional background, was probably seen as a wild card, a disruptor, and the one thing a desperate, fragile organization fears more than losing is disruption. So, you get into camp, Shedeur starts performing, he's exceeding expectations, the film doesn't lie, he's legitimately pushing their guy. Now, Stefanski and Berry have a massive problem. They look incompetent if they don't play the better guy, but they lose control of the narrative and potentially their jobs if they let a 5th rounder force their hand. So they panic. They go with the alleged manufactured suspension. It's a textbook low-level organizational move. Create a crisis to justify a predetermined outcome. It's corporate malpractice, and in the NFL, that's what gets you fired. Sanders knew this. He didn't just walk into a press conference, he walked into a corporate espionage briefing and dropped the full file. He didn't just say, "The coach doesn't like me." He laid out the MO, the modus operandi of a dysfunctional system. He didn't speak to the fans, he spoke to the HR department of the National Football League. He used the system's own rules against them. That's genius level strategy, not just football IQ. And we have to talk about the elephant in the room, Dillon Sanders. People immediately jump to, oh, he's just like his dad, arrogant, self-serving. But what if that's the point? Dillon's whole brand is unapologetic authenticity. He was one of the first athletes to truly realize his own value and market it aggressively, demanding respect and challenging the old guard. Shedeur didn't just inherit his athleticism, he inherited the Dillon mentality, the belief that you don't bow to the system, you force the system to accommodate you. Think about the timing. This isn't 5 years ago. This is the age of player empowerment. Guys are demanding trades. They're controlling their narratives on social media. They're building their own brands outside of the NFL's ecosystem. Shedeur Sanders just took the biggest, boldest step in this new era. He didn't leak it to Schefter. He didn't use an agent to float rumors. He went to the most formal, controlled environment the team could offer, the officially sanctioned presser, and blew it up. It's an act of pure, unadulterated defiance, and it speaks to a generation of athletes who are tired of the old school shut up and play culture. They see themselves as partners, as assets, not as employees to be manipulated. Shedeur is the voice of every backup, every talented guy sitting on the bench because he wasn't drafted high enough or because he doesn't fit the coach's buddy-buddy political profile. The NFL office has to be terrified that this works, because if Stefanski gets fired and the Browns are forced to play Shedeur because of fan and player pressure, and he succeeds, then they have an absolute precedent. Every disgruntled player in every locker room will point to this moment and say, Sanders did it, I can too. It fundamentally changes the leverage dynamics between players and coaches. It gives the player an escape valve, a truth bomb they can deploy if they feel they are being treated unfairly. Let's get into the weeds of the alleged manufactured suspension. If Shedeur's account is verified, and remember, he provided names and context making it easily verifiable, the Browns aren't just facing a PR nightmare. They're facing a potential legal and collective bargaining agreement nightmare. First, the CBA. The collective bargaining agreement has very specific language regarding player conduct, team discipline, and the fair administration of those rules. A staged confrontation to justify removing a player from the active competition roster would be a direct violation of the spirit, if not the letter, of the CBA. Dillon Gabriel, or the NFLPA on his behalf, could file a grievance. This isn't just about a couple of weeks' pay. This is about career opportunity and the financial impact of being designated as a problem players. Second, fraud and misrepresentation. If the team officially reported a suspension to the league based on a fabricated incident, that opens up a whole new can of worms. It compromises the integrity of the game and the internal reporting processes of the league. It creates a paper trail of a lie. The NFL's integrity policy is strict, and a coaching staff conspiring to falsify disciplinary action is a massive fireable offense that could easily include league fines and suspensions for Stefanski and potentially even Andrew Barry. Third, locker room trust. This is the non-contractual but most important ramification. The moment a player knows their coach is willing to create a fake narrative to manage the roster, all trust is gone. Every single player, especially those on the bubble, is going to look at Stefanski and wonder, am I next? Is my minor injury going to be exaggerated to put me on IR? Is my locker room disagreement going to be turned into a suspension? Once that happens, the coach is dead man walking. You cannot lead men who believe you are a snake. Shedeur didn't just expose Stefanski, he poisoned the well of trust for the entire organization. We can't ignore the city of Cleveland in this. They are the perennial victims of NFL ineptitude, the factory of sadness. They've seen everything: the drive, the fumble, the move to Baltimore, the constant carousel of quarterbacks. The fan base is cynical, exhausted, and desperately hungry for a hero. When a hero appears, they are often a disruptor. Think about how Cleveland embraced Baker Mayfield before things went sideways. Why? Because he had that edge, that I don't care what you think attitude. Shedeur Sanders is taking that attitude and elevating it to an unprecedented level of political action. The fan reaction is fascinating because it's so divided. The old guard, the conservative fans who believe in tradition, respect for the shield, and coach knows best. They see Shedeur as a petulant kid who just blew up his career and disrespected the organization. They want him gone. But the new guard, the younger, more critical fans, the ones who are tired of the losing and the corporate spin, they see him as a martyr for truth. They see him as the guy who finally had the nerve to say that the emperor has no clothes. For them, this isn't about football right now. It's about accountability. They're chanting "Play Shedeur" and calling for Stefanski's head, not because they know Shedeur is a better QB, but because they believe he is telling the truth and the coach is a liar. In Cleveland, truth is a commodity more valuable than a Super Bowl ring because they've had so little of it. This whole situation has become a referendum on the Browns' organizational integrity. Shedeur forced them to have this public fight. He didn't allow them to keep their secrets. He made them choose between the beloved, mild-mannered coach and the loud, truth-telling rookie who was willing to risk his whole future. The next 48 hours are crucial. The ball is not in Shedeur's court, it's in the court of Dillon Gabriel and the veteran players. Scenario A, the confirmation. If Gabriel, the victim of the alleged scheme, or one of the named veterans, comes out and says, yes, what Shedeur said is true, it's over. Stefanski is fired before the end of the day. The Browns have no choice but to terminate him with cause to mitigate the legal and PR fallout. Andrew Berry's job is also immediately on the hot seat. The Browns would have to issue a formal apology, begin a full, transparent internal investigation, and immediately reinstate Shedeur and Gabriel to full competition. Shedeur, the 5th-round pick, would suddenly become the de facto leader of the franchise, a power position almost unheard of for a rookie. If the Browns manage to pressure Gabriel and the veterans into silence, or worse, into a coordinated denial, the situation gets even more toxic. Shedeur would then be isolated, painted as a liar, a disruptive force, and a me-first guy. The team would release him or trade him for a bag of footballs, and the organization would spend the next year trying to convince the public that Shedeur was the problem. But here's the kicker. No one will believe them. Not fully. The seed of doubt is planted. The locker room will still be fractured, and Stefanski's authority will be permanently damaged. He'll win the battle but lose the war because the players will know the truth and the fans will suspect it. His tenure would become a death march. Scenario C. The NFL intervenes. The league is watching. If the heat gets too intense, the NFL could step in and launch an official investigation, citing the need to protect the integrity of the game. This is the cleanest way for the Browns to save face. The league takes the garbage out. If the NFL finds evidence of manipulation, they can suspend Stefanski indefinitely, essentially forcing the Browns' hand while allowing the ownership to claim they were victims of a rogue coach. This outcome is probably the best case scenario for Jimmy Haslam, who loves to deflect blame. My gut tells me this is too volatile to be contained. Shedeur was too precise. He didn't leave wiggle room. He gave the Browns a checklist of his accusations. If even 50% of it is provable, the current regime is finished. He didn't just burn the building. He took pictures of who started the fire and emailed them to the insurance company. Now, let's look beyond Cleveland. What is the long-term impact on the league? This is the birth of the journalist-athlete. The NFL media structure is built on leaks, sources, and agents floating information. Shedeur just bypassed the entire pipeline. He used his platform, the most direct line of communication with the fans, to do the job of a reporter. He became the primary source, the subject, and the analyst all at once. This changes how teams will handle their public-facing events. Press conferences, once mandatory corporate rituals, will become minefields. Coaches and GMs will be forced to be more authentic, more transparent, because the threat of a public live broadcast exposure is now real and verifiable. For player development, this means the political quarterback is dead. The idea that a team can simply decide who the starting quarterback is based on draft capital or salary, regardless of on-field performance, is now under threat. A young player can now use the court of public opinion to demand a fair competition. This gives leverage to the underdogs, the late-round picks, and the guys who were overlooked. It democratizes the competition process. Shedeur Sanders, the rookie, has inadvertently become the most powerful agent of change in the NFL right now. He didn't do it with a record-breaking contract or a Super Bowl ring. He did it with 2 minutes of unvarnished truth on a national broadcast. That is the definition of power in the modern age. It's not about what you own. It's about the narrative you control. And right now, Shedeur Sanders controls the entire narrative of the Cleveland Browns. And the longer they wait to respond, the more that control solidifies. Every hour of silence from Stefanski is a confirmation of Shedeur's accusations. Every non-committal statement from the front office is seen as a desperate attempt at a cover-up. The clock is ticking, not just on their jobs, but on the credibility of the entire organization. This is not going away. This is not a one-day news cycle. This is the new normal. So now I want to hear from you. Do you stand with Shedeur Sanders? Do you think he did the right thing by going public, by risking his entire career to expose what he called political manipulation? Or did he cross a line that can't be uncrossed? Is he a truth teller or just a disgruntled rookie acting out? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This is bigger than football. This is about leadership, about truth, about whether we want athletes to speak out or just play the game and stay quiet. What would you do if you were Dillon Gabriel right now? Would you stay silent and save your contract, or would you risk it all to support your teammate and confirm the truth? And if you're as locked into this story as I am, if you understand the gravity of this moment, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on those notifications, because this saga, it's just getting started. And I promise you, the next chapter is going to be even crazier. We are on full watch for the league's response, the front office's statement, and the inevitable veteran confirmation. This is history, and you need to be here for every moment of it. Don't miss what happens next. The Cleveland implosion is live.